After the over-engineered nightmare that was the Magnemite, it's time to make something very simple. Fortunately, the advantages of doing something in very unconventional ways is it's an opportunity to explore, to experiment, to find potentially new ways of making things move. Particularly the way that I had the parts trailing behind wasn't very effective in last week's exercise, but in this one, I think I have a bit of an idea. And this one's going to be simple enough to follow along if you want to try making it as well. So I'm going to be doing just a simple bird, specifically an eastern cattle egret, because they often like to walk around with this ridiculous posture that's very long. In fact, I think they almost look like a chicken drumstick if it was an entire animal. So I'm just going to draw a drumstick shape on a single layer and rig up a similar little contraption to last week with a 2-point constraint and a dynamic spring. Now the 2-point constraint, as you may know by now, has 2 peg inputs. I put the pivots at 2 different points and then it will automatically squash and stretch between them. But of course, what I don't want is the squash and stretch bit. I just want it to point in the direction of the other pivot. So by selecting on the 2-point constraint node itself and changing these particular parameters, the minimum distance and maximum distance to 100%, it means it's locked. It can't stretch or squash at all. The right hand port on the 2-point constraint is the base, and the top port will be the head. And I want that head to trail behind. So that's where the dynamic spring will get plugged in. Then it's just a matter of tweaking those parameters so that rather than springing and flickering, that spring will trail and ease. So see at the moment it's quite strong. It overshoots, and I don't really want that. By tightening the X and Y tension from the default of 7 up to 10, and bringing the inertia down from 80 to 60, that tends to get a pretty nice result. So now this is where the magic comes in. My favorite thing about animating, being efficient. It's not lazy, it's efficient. So now with the single tween, it will just sort of animate itself. Don't even need to ease it. Look at that. Yeah. With stick legs, I was thinking might as well give it some fairly good traditionally animated feet, but it's moving around so fast and so springy that I think it's just going to be better to give it that, hilarious pit-patty rapid fire between 2 keys with one of the feet straight up, one of the feet straight down. Yep. And just have those 2 frames cycle through the whole thing. But here's a cool trick if you didn't know about it, because there's now 3 drawings on this layer, 3 drawing substitutions that I'm going to be using a lot. And if you're ever going to be using your drawing substitutions a lot, it's a good habit to start marking them. You can see down at the left of my timeline window there's the mark drawing, like mark is key panel, like it's got keyframes, breakdowns, in-betweens. But in reality, those are just different colors, and you can use them for whatever you want. So I'm going to mark the one where they're just sort of standing straight down as red as the initial key, and then just the first walking one as blue and leave the other one as blank. So as I start to paste and recycle the same drawings over and over again, we can see very clearly the pattern. And yes, I know I can paste cycle here, but I can't be bothered. I'll just grab whole groups and paste them like that across. So now it's simply a matter of deciding where do I want it to go back to still, pasting that first red one back in, deleting the exposures of the pitter-patter, and the walk works. This is really straightforward to do. Again, last week's one was like 2 whole days of work. It was really probably too much for the kind of videos that I make. This one, I haven't even time-lapsed most of this. It was literally less, it was probably like 7 minutes, so you might as well try it. I'm curious what people are able to make with this automatic swing type effect. So there's not really that much interesting to talk about from here. I'm just going to be adding a gradient that matches more or less what this animal looks like. Hopefully capture their appearance a little bit, because I certainly didn't capture how they walked. Hooray, all done. Simplest kind of walk ever. 2 frames and not even an eased tween. I love efficient moots, but I hate Magnemite. Tune in next week while I do that compositing on Magnemite.